In the grand tapestry of American life, few threads are woven as deeply as the tradition of Thanksgiving. It is a holiday that arrives with the crisp autumn air, painting the landscape in hues of gold and crimson. For millions, it conjures images of abundance and togetherness. We imagine tables groaning under the weight of roasted turkey stuffing cranberry sauce and pumpkin pie. We see families and friends gathered, putting aside the rush of daily life to share a meal and express gratitude for the blessings of the past year. It is a day steeped in nostalgia, a cornerstone of the national calendar that seems as old and as enduring as the country itself, a moment of collective pause and reflection. This cherished holiday is more than just a feast. It is a powerful symbol. It speaks to core American values of family, community, and thankfulness. From the bustling streets of our largest cities to the quiet corners of our smallest towns, the fourth Thursday of November carries a unique resonance. It marks the unofficial start of the holiday season, a time defined by generosity and goodwill. The airwaves fill with the sounds of football games and television screens light up with the spectacle of grand parades. It feels like a distinctly American ritual, a shared experience that binds a diverse nation together in a common, comforting narrative of its own origins. But this familiar picture, the one immortalized in school plays and popular culture, is only one part of a much larger story. The Thanksgiving we celebrate today is the product of centuries of change, of invention, and of conflict. Its history is far more complex and contested than the simple tale of pilgrims and Native Americans sharing a harmonious meal. The story we think we know is often a blend of historical fact and national myth, carefully constructed over generations. Peeling back these layers reveals a narrative that is not always as comforting as the holiday itself, challenging our most deeply held assumptions about its beginnings. This journey into the past is not just an academic exercise. It is a quest to understand how a single event in the 17th century was transformed into the national institution we know today. It involves looking beyond the greeting cards and the festive decorations to uncover the real people and the real circumstances that shaped its evolution. We must ask ourselves what parts of the story have been emphasized and what parts have been quietly forgotten or deliberately ignored. Uncovering the untold history of Thanksgiving is essential to grasping the full, intricate, and often difficult story of America itself. To truly understand the origins of Thanksgiving, we must first look beyond the year 1621 and the arrival of the Pilgrims. We must journey much further back in time, into a world where giving thanks was not a single day on a calendar, but a fundamental part of daily existence. For countless generations, the indigenous peoples of North America had cultivated deep and intricate relationships with the land they inhabited. Their lives were governed by the rhythm of the seasons: planting, harvesting, hunting, gathering. Gratitude was not an abstract concept. It was an active, essential practice, woven into the very fabric of their societies, a constant acknowledgement of the world's generosity. These traditions were as diverse as the peoples themselves: climates, landscapes, cultures. From the dense forests of the Northeast to the arid deserts of the Southwest, each nation developed unique ceremonies and rituals to honor the Earth's bounty. These were not simply celebrations of a successful harvest, they were profound expressions of a worldview based on reciprocity. The belief was that the earth, the animals, and the spirits provided for the people. And in return, the people had a sacred duty to show respect, offer thanks, and live in a way that ensured the continuation of this delicate balance for future generations. These harvest festivals were vital community events, moments that brought people together to reinforce their social and spiritual bonds. They were times for feasting, dancing, singing, and storytelling, passing down ancestral knowledge from elders to the youth. The focus was on sharing the abundance, ensuring that everyone in the community, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, had enough. This communal spirit stood in stark contrast to the individualistic accumulation of wealth that would later characterize European colonial societies. For native peoples, a successful harvest was a blessing for the entire nation, and its celebration was a collective act of profound spiritual significance. So, when we speak of the first Thanksgiving, we must recognize that the concept of a harvest feast of thanks was not new to the continent in 1621. The Wampanoag, who would share a meal with the Plymouth colonists, were part of this ancient and widespread tradition. Their own ceremonies were steeped in millennia of history, observation, and spiritual understanding. To see the 1621 event as the origin point of Thanksgiving is to ignore the rich and complex tapestry of gratitude that had long defined life in North America. The real story begins not with the arrival of newcomers, but with the enduring traditions of the land's original inhabitants. Section 1. The Mayflower's Perilous Crossing. To understand the desperation that gripped the Plymouth colonists in 1621, we must first return to their point of origin. They were not adventurers seeking gold or seeking glory. They were a small, devout group of religious separatists. Fleeing persecution, they first sought refuge in Holland, but they feared their children were losing their English identity. Driven to practice their faith freely and keep their culture, they decided to journey to the New World. Their vessel was the Mayflower, a small cargo ship ill-suited for over 100 passengers. The voyage began in September 1620 and was a grueling ordeal from the start. The ship was cramped, unsanitary, and battered by ferocious autumn storms. Waves crashed over the decks, soaking passengers and their meager belongings. The constant pitching and rolling induced relentless seasickness. Below deck, families huddled together in the dark, the damp, and the cold, with little fresh air and even less privacy. It was a test of faith and endurance, a journey into the unknown that pushed them to their limits. The crossing lasted 66 agonizing days. One of the ship's main beams cracked under the strain of a powerful storm. The crew made a desperate mid-ocean repair with a large iron screw. The threat of the ship breaking apart hovered over everyone. Disease began to spread in the crowded conditions, and one passenger died before they reached land. Their original destination was near the Hudson River, in what is now New York, but fierce storms had blown them far off course. They found themselves off the coast of Cape Cod, a wild and unfamiliar territory far north of their intended patent, with the harsh winds of winter beginning to blow. Before they even set foot on shore, the colonists faced a crisis of leadership. Some of the non-separatist passengers, the strangers, threatened to go their own way. To maintain order, the Pilgrim leaders drafted the Mayflower Compact. 41 adult males signed, pledging to form a civil body politic and to enact just laws and equal laws for the general good of the colony. It was a remarkable act of self-governance, a desperate attempt to create unity and structure before they faced the immense challenges of survival in this new land. Following the brutal first winter, the spring and summer of 1621 brought a fragile sense of hope to the surviving Plymouth colonists. Guided by the invaluable knowledge of Tisquantum, or Squanto, they began to adapt to their new environment. He taught them the native way of planting corn, showing them how to mound the earth and fertilize each stalk with an alewife, a type of river herring. This technique was alien to their English farming methods, but perfectly suited to the New England soil. The colonists diligently planted their fields with the 20 acres of Indian corn Squanto had helped them procure, alongside smaller plots of barley and peas brought from England. The survival of their colony depended entirely on the success of this first harvest. The summer was kind. The weather was favorable, and the crops grew well under the watchful eyes of the colonists. Their health improved with a more varied diet, supplemented by fishing and foraging as Squanto had taught them. They learned to tread for eels in the mud of the tidal flats, and gathered clams and mussels along the shore. The alliance with Osamoqueen and the Wampanoag held firm, providing a crucial sense of security. The constant fear of starvation and attack that had haunted them through the winter began to recede, replaced by a cautious optimism. Their small settlement, once a scene of death and despair, was now a place of diligent labor and budding life. As autumn approached, the colonists gathered their crops, Their English grains, the barley and peas, yielded a disappointing crop, but the corn harvest was a resounding success. They had an abundance of it, enough to see them through the coming winter with a full storehouse. For the small community that had been on the brink of annihilation just months before, this bounty was nothing short of a miracle. It was tangible proof of their survival and a reward for their perseverance. The governor, William Bradford, noted that they had all things in good plenty, a stark and welcome contrast to the lean and shallow state they had endured upon their arrival. To celebrate their good fortune and their successful harvest, the colonists decided to hold a special gathering. This was a common English tradition, a harvest home festival, to mark at the end of the agricultural season with feasting and games. Captain Miles Standish, the colony's military leader, organized the men to engage in feats of arms, firing their muskets in demonstrations of military skill. It was a moment for the community to come together, to rejoice in their shared survival, and to give thanks for the blessings they had received. They were a people who had faced the abyss and emerged, and this celebration was an expression of their profound relief and gratitude. The peaceful image of the 1621 harvest feast, that brief moment of shared venison and cautious diplomacy, stands in stark contrast to the decades that followed. The spirit of cooperation, born of mutual vulnerability, could not withstand the pressures of colonial expansion. The alliance between the Wampanoag and the Plymouth colonists began to fray almost as soon as it was forged. The core of the conflict was a fundamental, irreconcilable difference in the understanding of land. To the Wampanoag and other indigenous peoples, land was not a commodity to be bought and sold. It was a communal resource, a living entity to be shared and cared for, the source of their identity and sustenance. The English, however, brought with them a system of private property, deeds, and fences. They saw the vast, unfarmed forests and meadows not as a managed ecosystem, but as an untamed wilderness to be conquered and possessed. As more colonists arrived from England, the demand for land grew exponentially. Smallpox and other European diseases, which had already ravaged coastal communities before 1620, continued to sweep through indigenous populations, weakening their ability to resist the encroachment. The English interpreted these devastating plagues as a sign of God's favor, believing He was clearing the land for His chosen people, further justifying their relentless expansion into native territories. The balance of power that had once made the alliance necessary began to shift dramatically. The English population grew, their settlements multiplied, and their military strength increased. The Wampanoag, once the stronger party, found themselves increasingly marginalized, surrounded by a foreign culture that did not respect their traditions or their sovereignty. The first major explosion of violence occurred not in Plymouth, but in the Connecticut River Valley. The Pequot, a powerful tribe in the region, had resisted English expansion and sought to control the lucrative fur trade. Tensions escalated, and in 1637, after the killing of an English trader, the colonists retaliated with overwhelming force. Colonial militias from Massachusetts Bay, colonial militias from Connecticut, Narragansett allies, Mohegan allies, launched a brutal campaign that became the Pequot War. The conflict reached its horrific climax in a pre-dawn raid on a fortified Pequot village near the Mystic River. The colonists surrounded the village, which housed mostly women, children, and the elderly, and set it ablaze. As inhabitants tried to flee, they were shot down by English soldiers or killed by native allies outside the palisade. In less than an hour, between 400 and 700 Pequot people were massacred. The commander of the colonial forces, Captain John Mason, declared that God had laughed his enemies and the enemies of his people to scorn, making them as a fiery oven. The event was not seen as a tragedy by the colonists, but as a righteous and divine victory over a heathen enemy. Following this massacre, the governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, William Bradford, proclaimed a day of public thanksgiving. This was not a day of feasting and games. It was a solemn day to give thanks to God for their victory and for the elimination of the Pequot. This 1637 proclamation marks a dark and often ignored chapter in the history of Thanksgiving in America. It cemented a new precedent in the colonies, the tradition of declaring days of thanks not for a harvest, but for a successful military campaign, often a bloody one, against the indigenous peoples of the land. This brutal event reveals the other side of the Thanksgiving story. While the myth of 1621 speaks of peace and cooperation, the reality of colonial expansion was built on conflict and violence. The final break between the Wampanoag and the colonists came a generation later. Osamequin's son, Metacomet, known to the English as King Philip, came to lead a people pushed to the brink, hemmed in by settlements, stripped of their land, subjected to English law. Metacomet saw that the only alternative to complete submission was war. In 1675, he forged a pan-tribal alliance and launched a massive uprising against the colonies. The conflict, known as King Philip's War, was the single deadliest conflict in 17th century America, a brutal and desperate struggle that engulfed all of New England for over a year. The war was catastrophic for both sides, but it was utterly devastating for the indigenous population. Metacomet was killed, his head displayed on a pike in Plymouth for 25 years as a grim warning. His wife and son were sold into slavery in the West Indies. For many Native Americans, particularly the descendants of the Wampanoag, the story of Thanksgiving is not one of peace and friendship. It is a story that marks the beginning of the end of their way of life. Because of this history, since 1970, many indigenous people and their allies have gathered on Coles Hill in Plymouth every Thanksgiving Day. They come to observe a national day of mourning. It is a day to remember their ancestors, to speak the truth about the history of colonization, and to protest the racism and oppression that Native peoples continue to face. For them, Thanksgiving is a day of sorrow and reflection, a powerful counter-narrative that challenges the cherished national myth and asks all Americans to confront the full, complex, and often painful history of their country. After the American Revolution, the newly formed United States struggled to create a cohesive national identity. The tradition of giving thanks had been regional and sporadic during the colonial era, and it continued that way. These were not fixed annual holidays, but special proclamations by civil authorities. In 1789, President George Washington issued the first National Thanksgiving Proclamation. He asked Americans to give thanks for the end of the war and for the ratification of the U.S. Constitution. It was a day to acknowledge divine favor and a solemn political act. Washington's proclamation did not make Thanksgiving a permanent annual holiday. The idea faced resistance. Some in Congress said the power belonged to state governors, not the federal government. This reflected tension between state power and federal power. Others, like Jefferson, feared government proclamations blurred church and state. After Washington, presidents issued such proclamations only intermittently. Thanksgiving remained regional, celebrated on different days in different states. Strong in New England, less common in the South. In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, Thanksgiving was mainly religious and civic, not the family feast we picture today. When governors proclaimed a day of thanks, citizens attended church services. The focus was prayer, sermons, reflection on blessings for state or nation. Dates varied by state and year, creating a patchwork of local traditions. The absence of a national Thanksgiving highlighted national divisions. As America expanded westward and the debate over slavery intensified, the cultural gap between the industrial North and the agrarian South widened. For Thanksgiving to become truly national, it needed a new narrative, one that transcended regional politics and religious differences. It needed a champion to reframe the holiday, transforming it into a cherished annual celebration of family, home, and national unity. The transformation of Thanksgiving from a scattered regional observance into a national institution was driven by the tireless efforts of one remarkable woman, Sarah Josepha Hale, as the influential editor of Godey's Lady's Book, one of the most widely read magazines in 19th century America, giving her a powerful platform to shape public opinion and domestic culture. For over 3 decades, she waged a relentless campaign to establish a fixed National Day of Thanksgiving. She believed a single national day could help unify a country fractured by political and sectional strife. Her vision was not just political, it was deeply cultural. Starting in the 1830s, Hale used her magazine to promote a very specific vision of Thanksgiving. In editorials, in poems, in stories, she painted an idealized picture of a multi-generational family gathered around a bountiful table, a scene of domestic harmony and abundance. She also standardized the menu: roasted turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, mashed potatoes, pumpkin pie. She created the culinary script for the holiday, turning a meal into a symbol of American domesticity and prosperity. Hale's campaign went beyond her magazine. She understood making Thanksgiving national required political action. She wrote thousands of letters to governors, congressmen, other public figures. Her most important correspondence was with U.S. presidents. She wrote to Zachary Taylor, Millard Fillmore, Franklin Pierce, James Buchanan. All declined to issue a national proclamation, saying it was a matter for the states. Undeterred, Hale persisted, convinced a national Thanksgiving was essential for the soul of the nation as Civil War loomed. Hale linked the holiday to the Pilgrims and the 1621 feast. Reviving that event gave the holiday a historical anchor and an origin myth. The story of Pilgrims and Native Americans sharing a peaceful meal offered a comforting national origin narrative, emphasizing unity and cooperation amid division. She romanticized the Pilgrims as founders and their harvest festival as the first Thanksgiving. That narrative resonated with a public yearning for shared identity. Hale, often called the godmother of Thanksgiving, had set the stage for the holiday's official birth. In 1863, the United States was in the darkest days of the Civil War. The nation was tearing itself apart in a brutal and bloody conflict that had already claimed hundreds of thousands of lives. In the summer of that year, the Union had achieved pivotal victories at Gettysburg and Vicksburg, turning the tide of the war, but the cost was immense and the future was still uncertain. It was in this context of profound national trauma and cautious hope that President Abraham Lincoln received another letter from Sarah Josepha Hale. She urged him to entwine the memory of our fathers with a day of national Thanksgiving, arguing it could help heal the nation's wounds. This time, her plea found a receptive audience. Lincoln, burdened with the immense task of preserving the Union, saw the power in Hale's vision. He understood the need for a symbolic gesture that could bring citizens together and offer a sense of shared purpose amid the carnage and division. On October 3, 1863, Lincoln issued a proclamation declaring the last Thursday in November as a national day of thanksgiving and praise to our beneficent Father, who dwelleth in the heavens. The language of the proclamation, penned by Secretary of State William Seward, acknowledged the suffering of the war but focused on the nation's enduring blessings, calling on Americans to ask God to heal the wounds of the nation. Lincoln's proclamation was a profound political act, spiritual act. By establishing a fixed national holiday, he was asserting federal authority, promoting a sense of a single, unified American people, even as the Confederacy fought to create a separate nation. The holiday was intended to foster a common identity and a shared sense of gratitude that could transcend the battlefield. While the proclamation was only binding on the Union states at the time, it laid the foundation for a tradition that would be embraced by the entire country after the war's end. Following Lincoln's decree, Thanksgiving became an annual presidential tradition. Every president after him issued a similar proclamation, cementing the last Thursday of November as the nation's official day of thanks. The holiday, as envisioned by Hale and enacted by Lincoln, was now inextricably linked to the idea of national unity. It was born out of the trauma of the Civil War, offered as a balm for a wounded country. The romanticized story of the Pilgrims, with its themes of perseverance and peaceful gathering, provided the perfect historical backdrop for a holiday meant to bring a divided family back together. The modern American Thanksgiving had finally been born. In the decades following the Civil War, Thanksgiving rapidly evolved from a solemn day of national healing into the grand cultural celebration we recognize today. As the nation industrialized and urbanized, the holiday became increasingly commercialized. The trend began in the late 19th century and exploded in the 20th. In 1924, a new tradition was born: Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City. It started as a small parade by store employees to mark the opening of the Christmas shopping season. It quickly became a massive public event: floats, marching bands, giant balloons, broadcast to millions. Another tradition became tied to the holiday: football. It dates to the late 1800s. College rivalry games were common on the day. The NFL began hosting Thanksgiving games in the 1920s. The Detroit Lions have played every year since 1934. Games became fixtures in American living rooms. The sounds of football matched the smell of a roasting turkey. The holiday's visual identity was shaped by Norman Rockwell. In 1943, he painted freedom from want, family, abundance, security. It was part of his Four Freedoms series. Reprinted millions of times, it helped make the turkey the meal's undisputed star. Finally, the date itself became controversial. In 1939, FDR moved Thanksgiving a week earlier. Retailers had pushed for the change. The goal was to extend the Christmas shopping season and boost the Depression-era economy. The move sparked massive backlash. Critics called it Franksgiving. For 2 years, the country was split. Some states on the third Thursday, others on the last Thursday. In 1941, Congress stepped in and fixed the date as the fourth Thursday in November, the date we celebrate ever since. In the 21st century, Thanksgiving has become a holiday of profound layers, a complex tapestry woven from threads of gratitude, family tradition, historical debate, commercial spectacle. For the vast majority of Americans, it remains one of the most cherished days of the year, a time to travel great distances and gather with loved ones. It is a day centered on the powerful and universal act of sharing a meal, a moment to pause the frantic pace of modern life and express gratitude for personal blessings. The holiday's modern identity is deeply rooted in the vision promoted by Sarah Josepha Hale and Abraham Lincoln, a celebration of home, family, shared sense of national belonging. This cherished tradition now coexists with an ever-expanding commercial dimension. For many, Thanksgiving is the official kickoff to the holiday shopping frenzy. Black Friday has become a cultural phenomenon. Retailers open earlier and earlier, sometimes even on Thanksgiving evening. This creates a cultural tension between gratitude and the pull of consumerism. The quiet, domestic 19th century vision now competes with televised football games, massive parades, and the siren song of holiday bargains. At the same time, a growing historical consciousness prompts re-examination of the holiday's origins. The sanitized myth of a harmonious first feast is being challenged by a more critical and inclusive understanding. More Americans are learning about the devastating impact of colonization on indigenous peoples and acknowledging that for many, the holiday is a solemn reminder of loss and injustice. This has led to difficult but necessary conversations about observing the holiday meaningfully and responsibly, seeking to honor gratitude without erasing painful history. Ultimately, Thanksgiving continues to evolve, reflecting the ongoing story of America. It is a day that holds multiple truths at once. It is a celebration of family unity and a reminder of historical division. It is an expression of gratitude and a symbol of commercial excess. It is a source of comfort for many and a source of pain for others. This complexity deepens the holiday's significance. As Americans grapple with these layers, Thanksgiving becomes more than a meal, an annual opportunity for national reflection. Consider who we are, where we came from, and what future we hope to build together. Thanksgiving is both a celebration and a story, one of survival, cooperation, complexity, struggle, and identity. The holiday continues to evolve as America reconsiders its past and shapes its future.